Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Good morning to you all. May there be a blessing upon your life and taking this time out of your day, of your Sabbath, taking this time out of your Sabbath to spend a little time with me, to share with you, with each other, some of these beautiful insights from the Holy One's instruction manual for life on planet Earth. What a beautiful blessing it is that our Creator, the creator of all the universe, has designed for us a guidebook, a manual. It's beautiful literature. It's beyond literature, though. These stories teach us lessons that are incredibly important for us to walk on this earth in wisdom, in kindness, in meaning, in purpose, and with impact that we're designed to have according to his plan. And this is his Sabbath. This is his day of strategic briefing, preparing us for the next week on assignment, the next week that will go forth, the first week of the 10th biblical month, the 9th biblical month of Kislev, the month we remember Antiochus Epiphanes and our great adversary, all of our great adversaries for that matter, and how we had to rise and learn to work the problem and deal with whatever the adversaries of this world chose to throw at us. That's our mission. That's what our Sabbath does for us. It gives us this beautiful sense of delight and inspiration, encouragement, empowerment. It does so much more than just let our bodies rest and our minds rest. It awakens the neshama, the eternal spirit of breath of God in us, and empowers us to be able to work in these mortal bodies in ways that bring honor and glory to our great King and to the kingdom that he has called us to represent and to spread throughout the world, to model for the rest of the world. Well, today we are privileged to discuss the sixth parsha of Torah, the month of Kislev, the ninth month of the biblical year that we deal with here has just begun. We've got a new moon cycle underway. And I know the world doesn't usually even recognize these things or pay attention to them, but this is the biblical wisdom to observe the new moon, to watch the new moon, and to follow after the ways of the new moon. Well, here we are, and we have basically four incredible stories that make up the Kislev story, the story of this ninth month. And the first set of stories is found in Parsha Toldot, and the second in the next Parsha Vayetze. This is followed a new set of stories in Parsha Vayishlach, and then a final set of stories that shock us and connect us with the season of Antiochus Epiphanes and the adversary and working the problem in the midst of our adversary's work, which is found in Parsha Miketz, and eventually the following of thereof. So we are in this new moon cycle. It's a new time. It's a new day. It's a new set of challenges that we need to face, and a new inspiration, a new empowerment that we're receiving to be able to face those things. But it starts, beloved, with Toldot. Toldot, usually translated as generations or stories or genealogies, but it's so much more than that. We'll talk a little bit about what Toldot means, but I'll give you the address that we're going to be working from first. The creator of the universe has designed for this week to focus, this past week, to focus on Genesis 25, verse 19 through Genesis 28, verse 9. I'm going to repeat that in case you want to grab your written materials or get it online through one of the online services. Genesis 25, verse 19 is where the Parsha Toldot begins, and it concludes with Genesis 28, verse 9. And next week, the next Shabbat that we get a chance, may the Holy One be willing, to gather and join together will be Parsha Vayetze, which will begin with Genesis 28 and 10. So here we are. Hopefully you've got your written word available to you, either physically with something you can hold in your hands and look at, or online. But wherever we are, here we go. This is the Parsha, and this is the moon cycle, the ninth moon cycle, that introduces us to the critical covenant discipline of facing and dealing with arch enemy antithesis. We are made stronger by the adversaries we face. I know that there's a part of our flesh and maybe even our pseudo-intellect that would prefer to live in a utopia. We would prefer to have no adversaries, to have no enemies, to have no one who appears stronger or appears to be adverse to us in any way. We would, our mind, our flesh, our pseudo-intellect would love to be the king of the hill. We play that as children. We want to be the king of the hill, and nobody can challenge us, and nobody can. That's not the way we learn. That's not the way we grow. That's not the way this world is designed to work, and it is certainly not the way this world works. So, to build into a plan, to training mechanism, to training disciplines of the master, to teach us how to live a well-lived life on this earth, require him to introduce to us adversaries. Adversarial characters that are actually stronger than us in many ways, that are more liked by the world and more prevalent and more powerful and more influential, it seems, than we are, and having us act as a counterbalance to them. We have to mature. We have to up our game to be able to deal with these adversaries. It starts in the garden with the serpent, and it gets the idea of Hasatan. These are just adversaries the Holy One has given to strengthen us, to enable us to grow, to not get comfortable and lazy in our little garden, wherever it may be, but instead to stay on point, on watch, on target, on mission, on time, under budget, as we might go further and say. The idea is these antitheses, these arch enemies, these nemeses, these adversaries are a gift from the Holy One. They don't feel like it. We don't like it. It isn't a gift we say, thank you for, I love this. No, this is not the gift you want to open on your birthday. But this is the gift that we need more than any other gift the Creator of the universe could give us. The gift of someone, something, some group to oppose us vehemently, sometimes violently, virulently, in ways that cause us to get out of our status quo and motivate us to go stronger, do better, work the problem, overcome, transcend. Well, the Parsha moon cycle of introducing critical covenant disciplines, dealing with arch enemies and antitheses. Well, I will subtitle it. I always give you a sort of a title and then a subtitle. My subtitle is drawn from a song out of the Disney musical. Well, it's actually an old story. Beauty and the Beast. Tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme. Beauty and the Beast. That's what we have. There is no beauty without the Beast. There is no Peter Pan without Hook. All the literary geniuses of the world have an antagonist that stirs and spurs and activates and energizes and empowers the protagonist of the story. Well, we are called to be beauty in this world. Beauty arise. That is what we're called to be. But unfortunately, we are not motivated by that very well. We tend to get all mushy and sentimental about it. We tend to get in some sort of a shrew-like condition of arrogance and looking down our noses at others because we're seen as beautiful by our Creator, by our covenant partner in heaven, by the God of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, by the God of Moshe. We're seen as beautiful. Isn't that wonderful? But yet, here's the deal. If we stay thinking, oh, how wonderful this is, I'll just stay in my under this raisin apple tree with these raisins and raisin cakes being fed to me, we'll never accomplish anything He put us on earth to do. We'll never pass on the baton or the beauty of the covenant to our sons and our daughters and our seed forever. We need the Beast. Beauty and the Beast. Thank the heavens for the Beast. Okay, so this Parsha is a Parsha of antithesis motivation. Now, here's the interesting thing. Human beings, you, me, all of us, tend to be motivated in certain ways. The Creator of the universe, our great King, has ordained that the first resort, the first chance of motivation, is His word and his goodness and wanting to be with him and wanting to be like him, and then with regard to his word, wanting to do his will and do the things that his word says because we trust him and know that's good. That is our first go-to motivator. He wants to do that. And it'll, to the extent that we allow our neshama, our God-breathed spirit that he breathed into Adam in Genesis 2:7 that is in every human being, if we allow that to awaken, then we will respond to this kind of a motivator. Unfortunately, most of us aren't really good at responding to this kind of motivation because we have such a strong nephesh and a strong flesh and basar in Hebrew. We have this sense of we want to work on instincts and appetites and urges and drives and desires and attitudes and opinions and ideologies and philosophies, conceptual things. We want to go in our own way as opposed to following the motivation of the beauty of the Holy One, his beauty of his words, the beauty of his ways, the beauty of his energies. Well, most of us have to have a second level motivator. Ha, welcome. Welcome to the motivator of hostile people and adversarial cultures that cause us never to get too comfortable where we are, doing what we are, at the situation we are. Welcome to the last resort motivators of the Creator of the universe. If we do not respond to his beauty and his majesty and the awesome nature of his Kedusha, his holiness, if we do not respond to his ways that cause such wonderful things to take place in the earth, his Elohim signature of creativity and glory, if we do not respond to his instruction manual of how to live life on earth in a way that brings honor and glory to the King and also produces progeny and makes the world a better place for them, if we do not respond to those motivators, then there is another way, his other way. He introduces into our environment hostile people, adversarial cultures. And we must then learn to navigate the obstacle course. We have Overwatch. He is watching us at all times, but we are given an assignment and a role, and that role has adversaries that want to stop it. Antithetical worldviews, antithetical adversarial perspectives, adversarial goals. They have different motivations. They have different goals. They have different agendas than we do. So that we have to learn through and navigate through people and cultures and groups that have different life and relationship approaches than we do, different levels of God consciousness, God awareness, God responsiveness than we do, different levels of value matrices than we have. They value different things than we do. They prioritize different things than we do. And they have different philosophies of life than we do. And these times they will be adversarial to us. Sometimes they will be violently against us, virulently opposed to us. We will have to be on our toes. And that will cause us to become stronger. That will cause us to push back into the earlier motivators of the beauty of the Holy One, of the majesty of his ways, and the productivity and the fruitfulness of his ways, and of the goodness and the wisdom of his words of instruction for life. That's how the motivation system works, and we are right at a time when we're really pressing in because of our lack of response to his good motivators. He's going to give us others, and that's how we're going to get better. You never get, in a sports team, for instance, or an army, you never get better till your enemy gets better. When your enemy gets better, you have to get better, or die, which we're not going to be on the table for us. So I can call this way the Holy One works the antithesis initiative. I'll repeat that for you in case you want to think about it and meditate on what a word means. Antithesis initiative, his antithesis initiative. You sometimes wonder, why doesn't he just take Hasatan, Satan, out of the world? Why did the old the comic book or kid where the one kid sitting in the back seat with the baby brother that she doesn't like? She says, "Why did you have him?" Tells him, talking to her mother. Why did we have the Edom, the Esau's? Why did you have the Ishmaels? Why did you have them? Why didn't you just take them out, get them out of our way so we can have a nice, peaceful life? Why Satan? Why don't you can bind him for 1,000 years later in the book. Why don't you do it now? He says, no. You don't understand. This is for your good. This is the antithesis initiative. of the Holy One. Doesn't mean you have to like them. It doesn't mean you have to thank them for the work that they do. It means you understand that their tricks and their bluster and their anger and their emotionality, these are things that you will learn are designed to cause you to rise up and be a better person, to help you be motivated to your greatness. So the antithesis initiative is that a person or thing that is directly opposite of someone or something else is raised up to be iron sharpening iron, to cause a growth, a maturity, an advancement, to get out of the status quo. In literature, it's called foil motif, I think, if I recall correctly from my literature classes. Foil motif, the introduction of someone who diametrically opposes and plays the foil for the protagonist of the story. As I said earlier, without Hook, what would Peter Pan be? Without the enemy, the adversary that is always in every story, what would we ever be? So, the pairing of a protagonist and a foil character provides context to what the protagonist character, the beauty character, is supposed to do. Provides contrast. You'll be able to see what they're doing by virtue of contrasting it what the other people are doing. And provides conflict and friction that causes there to be a release of energy. If you want to understand what we're supposed to be called, be light. We are light to the Gentiles and the nations. We are the light of the world, as the Messiah, our master, the great rabbi, taught. If we're this, then how does light come about? Light comes about when energy, electrons of energy are pulsed through resistance, and that resistance and the meeting of the resistance with the energy force causes a glowing, a heat, and a bursting of light. Well, that's if you want to be the light of the world, if you want to be a light to the Gentiles, understand that means the energy that's in you has to come face to face with the friction, with the resistance of the world. All right, now. Through the foil motif of literature, an author illustrates the traits. This is how you find out who you are. When you face an enemy, when you face an adversary, when you face your foil, when you face your antithesis or your nemesis, that's when you find out what traits are really in you, what values you really have, what priorities you really follow, and what motivations really work with you. That doesn't happen outside the antagonist. The traits and the values and the priorities and the motivations of the protagonist are revealed by virtue of comparing him to someone different who is adversary and in a different, completely opposite of who the protagonist is. When the challenge takes place, you either rise to meet it or your weakness is exposed for what it really is. So the challenge posed by a foil character, and we're talking about foil characters being, particularly in this case, we're taking foil character to the higher level of Esau. Esau, as the King James writers tended to write that, but Esau would be his way to pronounce his name. And he is going to be the foil character through which Yaakov is matured and trained. Jacob, as he's called by the King James translators. Yaakov is going to be turned into, he's going to grow into a great covenant partner, a worthy recipient of the birthright, a worthy recipient of the blessing, a worthy next generation partner of the creator of the universe in this great covenant to redeem mankind as a species, bloodline by bloodline, household by household, individual by individual, as many as will come, and the great plan to restore all of creation to its original intended state of beauty and fruitfulness and shalom and harmonious interworking. The challenge the foil character poses is going to bring out this. The challenge that Esau poses is going to bring out slowly, gradually, over a course of ups and downs and fits and starts. But over the course of his lifetime, the protagonist, the first protagonist being Yaakov and Esau, and the later protagonist being Laban, or Laban, as he's known in the Hebrew realm. These antagonists are going to bring the foil motif in place for Yaakov, and we need that. We're all Yaakov. We're all Jacob, as you may think. And we all need these foils in order to be able to bring out the best in us though they feel like at the moment they bring out the worst in us. And sometimes the worst must come before the best. Those who overcome learn how to see the worst and overcome it. This also helps us to keep from being proud, arrogant. Listen, that is the first thing on the list of things that our Creator hates. If you look to Proverbs, you see that the things the Lord hates begin with arrogance, with pride, with the proud look. You understand, we need to learn, we need the adversary to keep us from getting proud. I know people in the religious world don't like to hear stuff like this. This is wisdom from the Creator's throne. He knows what it takes for men to become their best, for women to become their best, for children to overcome their challenges. It's not to moan and whine and complain and get pampered and treated right. It is to be challenged at every level and then have oversight, overwatch to be able to get through and overcome the challenge. So, game on. With the birth of Yaakov and Esav as twins from the same womb, critical lines are being drawn on a great chessboard. And we're going to see that everything in life now becomes this chess game between the one side and the other side, between the protagonist side and the antagonist side. And sometimes the protagonist will not behave well. And if that were what your criteria was, you have to be perfect or else you're going to be kicked out of the game. That's not the way. You have to go through and learn how not to make those mistakes again. So this is the idea. There's this chessboard of strategic offsets. One play, one move countered by another move. A learning how the other side strategy works. A learning how to overcome. A learning how to keep a focus on the end game as opposed to the immediate challenge that seems before you, and the emotions of that, and the instincts that want to rise, and the hormones that seem to flow, fight and flight, and all those things. Learning now that we're looking for the long game, the wisdom role. The object of the game, you see, is who can blaze the best trail with the least collateral damage through the obstacle course the Creator has provided for each one of us. Every one of us is given a unique, different obstacle course. Some of the adversaries look a lot alike, but what they are is the opposite of us. Our adversary, whoever you deal with in the workforce or in the school or in the marketplace or in the home, whoever you deal with in the political realm, in the economic realm, in any realm, in the religious realm, in the community of faith, wherever you feel you have an adversary, someone that isn't doing what you like and does the exact opposite of what you do, there's your foil. Thank the Holy One for them and learn from the challenges of that. So the issue is who was going to leave the more excellent pathway with as little rubble as possible in the pathway for those who wish to leave the realm of evil, the realm of darkness, the realm of hate, the realm of stress, and the realm of trauma and drama for the transition upward. With that being said, let's just stop for a moment and let's release our call to worship, our baraku, our blessing before we read from the actual Torah, from Genesis 25, 1 through 28, 9. Here we go. It's the baraku. Hope you've learned it by now by watching these broadcasts, but if you're not, just listen. It's going to be sung in Hebrew, and that will hopefully awaken and inspire and cause to arise your neshama, your God-breathed spirit within you. It's the language of heaven. Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam vayed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bakar banu mikol ha'amin v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Yes. Now open our eyes, O Holy One, that we may see wondrous things from your Torah. For we are but strangers in the earth, so do not hide your commandments from us. Last week, we left off being in the midst of the season of the testimonies. Zeman ha'adut, I call it, the season of the stories, the season of the testimonies. These are the foundational patriarchal narratives, family history stories that tell us who we are, where we come from, and why we're here, and what we're designed to accomplish. These stories are not just stories picked at random from ancient tales. These are the stories that provide us the framework of life and give us the incentive and the motivation to know who we are, who the Holy One put on this earth, who he incorporated in these physical bodies, and the mission that he's called us to do. So these foundational patriarchal narratives, they shape our God consciousness. They instill the fear, the reverent fear, the honor, the awe, the reverence at the Holy One. They remind us of our purpose in life and reason for having the breath of life and the gift of speech and the gift of cognitive thought and the ability to influence our fellow man and the environments we live in. They teach us to frame, and they form the frame for our identity, for our self-image, as opposed to letting the world or the culture or the media or somebody else tell us who we are or what we should think of ourselves or what we should think of others. This is the way in which the Holy One has designed. His wisdom is to use the season of testimonies, this Zeman ha'edut, the season of the great stories of the patriarchs, to teach us who we really are. Take off all the Esavian garments that we put on, trying to be like someone else and trying to pretend we're somebody else, and actually be who we were created to be. Well, we have read the last of the adventures of Avram and Sarah as she's called in the Western world, and they each of them have in turn reached the end of their assigned watch on earth of the covenant. As the covenant torchbearers, their time is over. Their bones now lie buried in the cave of Machpelah near Hebron. And now Yitzhak and Rivka, well, yes, because Rivka's been taken by Yitzhak as his bride. She's been taken into the tent of Sarah, and these two are our new duo. The next critical phase of the Creator's grand plan of redemption and restoration is about to be unveiled. The second gen, His Majesty's Secret Service unit, is officially on the clock, ready, set, go. Warning. As I've said before, however, we, the covenant seed, are not the only players in the game. Be wise as serpents. Be harmless as doves. But let's do what we were put here to do and be who we were put here to be. Let's follow the Holy One and let's do His work and do His will and walk in His ways, no matter what the adversaries do. Let us not be distracted by the things the adversaries do. Let us not envy them for what seems to come so easily to them. Let us instead seek the kingdom of heaven and its righteousness, and all the other things will fall into place after that. So we ended last week by being reminded, our portion last week, we ended with a little section in the chapter 25, verses 16 through 19. Or 18, I guess it was, and it was the testimony of Yishmael's progeny. Not only we're here, but Yishmael's going to be here. Now we're going to find later that Esau's going to be here. Laban's going to be here. There's going to be always adversaries. There's always those who are antithesis. But right now we were focusing on Yishmael last week because that was Yitzhak's. That was Yitzhak's nemesis, was Yishmael. Sometimes these people come from your own home or your own family, or at least your own step family. Well, these were the sons of Yishmael, it told us near the end of chapter 25, before we get to this parsha. These were the sons, the seed of Yishmael, the sons of Yishmael. And these were their names, and these were their towns, and these were their settlements, and these people are spread. This is a chess set is set here. And they've got names, and they've got towns, and they've got settlements, and they've got princes among them, and they've got nations coming forth from them. This is not just some little one person anymore. Now we have the chessboard set for Yitzhak against the sons of Ishmael. And that means that that will be what starts for Yaakov and for Esau. And it goes on and said, at the very end of chapter 25, or at least the last part of 25 for last week's parsha, it said, and these were the years of the life of Ishmael. Ishmael had an influence. He had an impact in the world. Over 137 years. And he breathed his last and he died and he was gathered to his people. And then it says they dwelt, the sons of Ishmael. They had their dwelling and they dwelt from Havilah as far as Shur. That's a good big spread. East of Egypt, as you go towards Assyria, go toward the north. That's a lot of area. This is one of our neighbors. This is going to be there. And they died in the presence of all their brethren. Well, that's why we ended last week. Now, this week, we start out with these words. Are you ready? I'll read in Hebrew because I'm speaking to your spirit, not to your mind. And then I'll follow with an English interpretation that I would give based to actually have your mind hopefully catch up with your spirit as we're reading. These are the first few words of the parsha known as Toldot. Ve'ele Toldot. I'm going to go ahead and get my glasses on so I can read with you. Ve'ele Toldot. And these are the stories, the accounts, the generation transcending, world-changing narratives. Ve'ele Toldot. Ve'ele Toldot Yitzhak ben Avram. These are the stories, the transcending narratives pertaining to Yitzhak, the son, the construct, the disciple of Abraham. And then it says, Abraham holied et Yitzhak. Abraham provided the seed out of which developed, matured, nurtured Yitzhak. Abraham was the seed. Yitzhak is the fruit. Now we're going to see that pass from generation to generation. Before it's over, we're going to see that Yitzhak will be the seed and Yaakov will become the fruit. And on and on and on and on till you and me. And then we look beyond us to our children and our children's children, the seed of the covenant. What does it mean? We'll talk about it in a little while. It goes on. The parsha goes on in Hebrew. Vayehi Yitzhak ben arba'im shana. And it came to pass when Yitzhak was 40 years old. Bechaktu Rivka bat Betuel ha'arami mi Padan Aram. He took Rivka, the daughter of Betuel, the Aramean from Padan Aram, Akot Lavan, the sister of Lavan ha'arami, the Aramean, lo leisha, for his wife. Vaya etar Yitzhak ladonai, and Yitzhak interceded. He atarred. He pleaded from his spirit, his soul, before the Holy One. He laid down these things before the Holy One. Lenoach ishto ki akarahi, in front of and for regard to, concerning his wife, because she was akara. She was barren. Her womb was not working. Ve'ya'atar ba'ya'ater lo Adonai v'tahar Rivka ishto. The Holy One had closed her womb, had shut it up. And Rivka, his wife, but v'tahar Rivka ishto, but then his wife, Rivka, conceived. Okay, now we have it's on. The game is on. And we have this word, ele toldot. These are the toldot. Let's go a little deeper into what toldot means. It's from a Hebrew verb that means, it's yalad, yod, lamed, dalet, yalad. And this word yalad means to bring forth offspring or reproduce. But it's not just the act of giving the birth. It's all the things that go with having a child. It's the cost from A to Z and the protocol and what you go through from A to Z to reproduce offspring, to take them through the time on the breast, and take them then through and everything they have to do, everything about it, all the way till the maturity until you die. You are always a parent. The idea of Yalad. Those are the Toldot. These are the Toldot. These are the stories coming forth of what Yitzhak gave birth to, gave seed to, and then nurtured to maturity. That's what we're going to be reading about. What we're talking about is the entire substance and quality and effect and impact of human life. About what is your life worth? What is the impact of your life? That is what Toldot tells. What's the story that's being written? What story is written in heaven about your life? What story is being written on earth in your life? What story, if you have children or grandchildren, what story is in their mind about you? What if you have a wife, if you have a husband, if you have a brother, a sister, if you have people that you influence at your work or in your school or in your marketplace or in your faith community, what story is being written about you? This is your Toldot. So this, what lasting influence? What current influence and what lasting influence are you having on other people's lives, on the times in which you live, on the Shabbats in which you are participating, the Sabbaths, in the festivals that you celebrate, you observe, and you bless people in? What is your influence? How are you engaging? This is your Toldot, and then your generations that you live in. So, through the words Ele HaToldot Yitzhak that begin the parsha, the writer of Torah is not only introducing us to the impact of Yitzhak's life, he's on the people of his day, but he's also introducing us to the impact of Yitzhak's life upon us in our times, because we're supposed to be drawing strength and encouragement and wisdom and teaching discipline from the ways of Yitzhak and the seed of Yitzhak all the way into our children's children and the world in which they live as well. How does Yitzhak affect us? What's the story about? Why do we need to even know about Yitzhak? Why did the Holy One desire this to be part of our protagonist, antagonist literature that we read, the stories that we read every year at this time of the year in particular, to teach us how to be the sons and daughters of the covenant? Well, I want to talk to you a little bit about this. Is a great story, the Toldot of Yitzhak and Rivka. This is a combo. This is a duo. There is we have an Ezer Kenegdo here. We have an opposite that is energizing and synergizing with us to accomplish things. It sometimes teaches us how not to do things and what doesn't work, as well as teaches us what does. That's the beauty of a Isha and Ish. The issue of a marriage. But for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, the Holy One said in Genesis 2. Then he shall be joined to his wife. He become unified with his wife in such a way that they cling to one another. And they shall become basar lebasar echad, for one flesh, unto one flesh. They quit being so separate. They become more like. The way they think becomes more alike. The way they emote becomes more alike. The way they prioritize things becomes more alike. The way they act, the way their mannerisms. This is becoming one flesh. It's not about some physical act of consummation of a marriage, as some people think. This is about all of the ways in which the husband and wife cease to be separate and become more and more like one another, and synergize and energize with each other. Well, that's the idea of the story. We have now Yitzhak and Rivka. Who is yours? Who will be, if you have one now, who is your soulmate, and who will be if you do not have that soulmate yet? Remember, you are not just here for your personal needs to be met. And a marriage is certainly not about you getting your personal needs met. That's the world's idea, that somehow romance will come and you'll feel these feelings and get all these, and the other person will just do everything for you the way you want them to. And that's not a marriage. That's a pipe dream. What you need, what you're really getting is an Ezer Kenegdo. What you're really getting is someone to synergize and energize you and teach you how to do things that work and don't work, and you'll learn how the difference is fairly quickly. And so you build a teamwork between the two of you to learn how to build a kingdom counterculture, to offset the ways of the antithesis, the adversaries, the nemesis of the world, and build houses of shalom. An oasis. We're to provide an oasis of shalom. Do you have that in your house? Is that the word you carry with you in your car, in your conversations, whether the online conversations and social media? Are you bringing an oasis of shalom, an oasis of hope and joy and light into the world? Or are you falling into the patterns of the world to make criticisms and judgments and be angry and be arrogant? Which are you doing? The idea of an Ezer Kenegdo, of having a Rivka and Yitzhak being one as a married couple, is that they're not going to have everything exactly alike and feel the same way. They're going to have great controversy from time to time, as we'll see. But together, they work together, and eventually they'll become a kingdom counterculture force, which provides an oasis of shalom, generation by generation. And that's what we have today. We have a generation, hopefully, that can be an oasis of shalom in a world of trauma and tragedy and injustice and immorality, if you want to use these terms. These are just thoughts. These are just concepts. The issue is, are you bringing health, life, peace, shalom, joy, energy, reproductive energy? Are you bringing good stewardship and wisdom into the world? Or are you not? That's the real challenge. All right. Now, the story of Yaakov and Esau. These are going to be the children born during these stories that we'll read in Parsha Toldot. And we're going to be dealing with them for a little while. But the two children are fraternal twins. They're not identical twins. They're from the same womb, but they're not from the same seed. They are, however, raised in the same household by the same people. How could they have turned out any more different? There's fire and straw. There's oil and water. They're just not on the same wavelength. Well, remember, you are not, no person, no parent is here to bring a child joy or honor, or to have the child bring them joy or honor. We're here to form a nation that creates an oasis of peace in the world. That's a high order. That's a tall order, and it does not come without conflict, as you'll learn. We are here to shape the future of mankind in a way that there is no necessity for things like a flood or the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah or any cities of the plain. That's a tall order. So the acts, the different phases, parts of this portion Toldot are, first of all, I call it Behold the Newlyweds. We're just introduced to Rivka and to Yitzhak as being the new covenant duo. The new heirs to this, being the seed of Avram, and the covenant promises that the Holy One made to Avram in Genesis 12, 1 through 3, and so many other places, 22, 18, 19. These are the promises. I'm just giving a shorthand version. So many promises to Avram. Now, the new heirs to those promises are Rivka and Yaakov. First part of chapter 25. And then we see that there is the time of pregnancy. We see, first of all, how Yitzhak does things that no one else has done. He begins to engage in conversations with the creator of the universe at a level. It's called atar in Hebrew, ataring. I think it says pleading or interceding in English. But this word atar is gut level interaction, humble, but nevertheless, deep communication with the Creator. Do you have that? That's the first thing he teaches is some people need to learn. We all need to learn to have deep, intimate conversations with the Creator, not superficial wish lists that we present or decrees or demands that we impose upon him as if he was our genie and we're the owner of the bottle. Well, so the issue, we see that Rivka becomes pregnant. She becomes pregnant with twins. There is great trauma inside of her womb. It's not like ordinary jostling between children. This is like violence taking place. This is the first foil introduction to young Yaakov's life. Before he's even born, he's dealing with a death threat from his brother who's stronger than him, bigger than him, and definitely with a different viewpoint of life and the value. Esau just wants room and space. He doesn't want somebody in his way. Well, Yaakov is in his way. So it is with the New World Order. So it always is with the people there. We're in their way. And so they don't have anything besides they want us out of their way. They don't like us. They don't want us there. They don't have any sense that there's a greater purpose going on in this regard, and that we'll get to them serving us. Then the birth of the first twins. First of all, the Holy One met with Rivka. The Rivka went to meet with him. She began to learn her secrets from Yaakov about going to intimate communication. And then he speaks to her. The Holy One speaks to her. The first God encounter. He says, "No, in your womb there are two nations. There are offsetting nemesis or antitheses in your word, and the younger, the younger, the older will serve the younger." Oh, that service is not what you may think. The older will serve by being the foil, by being the adversary, by bringing out ultimately in the long term the best in the younger. Well, we get that. Then we have the birth of the twins, and we find out they're so different. Esau is like fully formed. He's just little. He's more mature. He's his body. He's beautiful. He's the one you want. He's the great beautiful kid. Then there's the little one. There's the runt, and that's Yaakov somewhat. He has his own way of being beautiful. He's not ugly. It's just that he's compared to Esau. Esau is like your superstar, and Yaakov is like your average guy. And so we have these babies being born, and everything about Esau rather, is strong, and everything about Yaakov is not as strong. And so he's going to have other ways of developing. Than physical strength or any of the things that the world thinks are most important. If you wanted to use the world's ideas of which is the better child, the more beautiful child, the child Gadol, that's going to be Esau. Well, that's what we find when the twins are born. And then we see that because of their personalities, before they mold together, yes, Yitzhak and Rivka have different approaches to these children. They have different viewpoints about them, and they have different attitudes toward them. And these children begin to develop so differently. He does everything physically well. He's an athlete. He's a hunter. He's a trapsman. He's skillful. He does all this stuff well. And Yaakov he's less than that. He's not quite there on the physical side of things. And so he has to focus on other interests. And he stays around the tents while Esau goes and does his physical thing, his rah-rah macho thing that he does so well. He does beautifully. And so we see the dramatically increasing priority matrices between these two. And to some degree, they're mirroring what's in Rivka and Yitzhak, the father and the mother. And so we see then the next thing is that there is we leave that there, and there's a famine in the land, and they have to leave. They have to leave their place around Beer Laharoi and the little oasis, and they've never had to deal with other people. But before these kids grow, they need to be in an environment of extreme antipathy and antithesis. And so the covenant family ups and migrates to the land of Gerar, the land where the Philistines are. We're not in Kansas anymore. This is not our little oasis of shalom and peace. Now we find we're in the midst of a very hostile environment. I've told you about how this works and what the purpose of it is. You can cry, you can moan, you can complain about injustice and irreverence and all the things you want to complain about, or you can say, oh, this is what we've got. Now, this is designed for my good. All things work together for good. God works all things together for good for those who love him, who are called according to his purpose. I'm in that category, and I'm ready. So what is going to be the lessons we learn from this lesson, this exile? Though the famine of the land leads to a God encounter for Yitzhak. Yitzhak is told not to go to Egypt in this famine like his father Avram did. You got your own set of challenges to face and things to prove. In every generation, we have to develop our own history, our own story, our own testimony of God's faithfulness. And so Yitzhak has this encouragement. Go and stay, lodge, he says, temporarily, sojourn in Gerar. Well, we're going to see Yitzhak might overstay his welcome a little bit, go beyond sojourning, because he's going to get blessed there. But we'll get to that another perhaps day or week. But I understand there might be something in the Hebrew phraseology of the verb used to sojourn as opposed to being to reside. Now, he says that, and so Yitzhak goes, and Yitzhak and Rivka are able to face all sorts of things, including the famine, and Rivka being taken into the harem of the king of Gerar, and nevertheless we see that they prosper, that they overcome the pogroms, and there are many not of ill will against them there. They're hated, they're disliked. It's like Yaakov faced from Esau in the well. You're here, I don't want you in my space. Well, that's kind of what they faced in Gerar, and we learn those lessons of being where we're not really wanted or appreciated. Don't whine. Don't pout. Don't be wounded by that. That's the way, the motivation factor of the whole one, trying to get us up and out and in at about the business of the kingdom. So Yitzhak and Rivka face the pogroms and the persecutions of Gerar, learn their lessons, and obviously in the process are teaching young Yaakov these lessons as well. And then we see Yitzhak leaves Gerar. There's a pogroms follow him. It's all about wells. Avraham had dug wells. He had his servants dig wells, actually, all through the Negev, all through the desert. He was all about hospitality. He was all about provision. Well, he was a shepherd. He knew other shepherds were out there. And these wells were open to weary travelers, to shepherds searching for water for their sheep or their flocks, their goats. This is even for the Philistine they were able to use. Any traveler, anyone could come. Well, it wasn't the fact that the wells were a threat to the Philistine of Gerar. It was the fact that the Hebrews were there. They had something to do with the Hebrews. They didn't want anything to do with them, so they would take vile filth and rock and dirt, and they filled up the wells that they could themselves drink out of. Talk about cutting off your nose to bite your face. This is just the nature of the adversary that we face. Is he doesn't think rationally. He thinks emotionally, and he uses rhetoric of emotion. And he uses tactics of emotion as opposed to dealing with that which could actually be a blessing and is wise. We're to be wise as serpents, harmless as doves, because he will be neither. Our adversary will be neither of those things. Not wise, not harmless. So Yitzhak then we have this famous deal where the blessing is sought. The blessing. We had a sale of the birthright. Maybe we'll have a chance to talk a little bit about what the birthright is and what it means and why Yaakov wanted it from Esau, who was actually technically the firstborn because he came out first of the twins. And then now we have this other issue where Yitzhak decides to bestow his fatherly paternal blessing upon, and he was going to do it to Esau. And then Rivka hears. She orchestrates a deception. She uses the tool of Yaakov to be the deceiver that puts on Esau's clothing. She participates. She produces food, seasons it like the wild game that he thought Esau was going to bring him, but Yitzhak was blind, couldn't tell the difference. You know the story and how the blessing was actually bestowed upon Yaakov, and then Esau came in and got a lesser blessing. Matter of fact, a counterbalancing blessing that we'll may have had a chance to talk about. And then we were introduced to the ultimate Esavian offense and outrage. As I said, our adversaries, our foils in this world, whether they be of our own family or whether they be in the world and the ideologies and the nations around us, they are activated by emotion and they're activated by malice. And so an offense, and that's what motivates them. Drama stirs them. Well, that's what happens with Esau. He decides he's going to kill Yaakov. He works in outrage. When you hear people talk about outrage, know this, they're not talking kingdom talk. They're talking Esau talk. They're talking foil, adversary, antithesis, satanic talk. That's what outrage is. That's what offense is. And so now we get into the issue of the other part of the Esavian character, the nature, and that is Esau is a lusty guy. He wants, and so he finds these girls and takes them in, and he begins to Canaanite girls and his daughter of Ishmael, and boy, he's lusty, and so you see this sense of sexuality, sensuality becomes their priority system, as opposed to we're the offset. While we are able to enjoy in proper context, pleasure of all varieties, from sensual to spiritual, we focus our priorities on the spiritual and on the purpose and the calling of life of God upon our lives, not upon what can bring us a few moments pleasure or what can activate our lust. Well, then you finally see the end of the Parsha. Yaakov is reconnected, is exiled to the house of Nahor. He has to leave because of the violence, the anger, the hate that we see from Esau. And he goes to the house of Nahor. He will have an exile. He will learn in Laban's house then, which is where he'll wind up. He will learn additional lessons that even Esau couldn't teach him, as far as learning how to learn from the adversary. Okay. Well, so the question becomes, the chessboard is laid out. As you were born, as you walk through life, there is a chessboard. The Holy One has got your oversight. But he has set against you, opposing you, various different forces, knights and bishops and a queen. He has set against you pawns. He has set against you rooks. And there are all these different motivating factors on the other side that you need to keep an eye out for. Which side of the chessboard are you on? Are you on the side of the kingdom of heaven, or are you on the side of the prince of darkness? Are you on the side that is bringing shalom and joy and hope and purpose and meaning and wisdom into the world? Or are you the one who has the Esavian mentality of more stuff, more greed, get out of my way, you're in my way, I don't want you near me, or unless I want you for my lust and my greed and my avarice and my desire? Which is it? What side are you on? And what will it take to make you grow, to make you mature into being the full partner of the covenant and the full blessing to the world and to all the families and the households of the world and all the nations and all the kings of the world that you are called, and kings and kingdoms that you're called to be? Well, who are you and who are you not? Beloved, this is the question as we are in this season of testimonies. Zaman ha'adut, the season of the great stories. Who are you really? And who are you not? What lessons are you learning from your adversaries? Take a deep breath. We can do this. We have Overwatch. We have the Holy One of the universe training us. This is an obstacle course that has been set for us, designed for our good and for the good of the creation, for the good of our bloodline, for the good of the world. Well, good Sabbath to you. May your time before the Holy One, with your family or wherever you may be, in creation, wherever you may choose to spend the Sabbath, may it be a time of delight and energy and empowering and inspiration. Shabbat Shalom.